In this section of the course, I want to look at SSL. You've probably heard of it, you may have even implemented it on your website. SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer, and it's the standard security technology for establishing an encrypted link between a web server and a browser. Why is that important? Well, SSL will ensure that all data passed between the web server and a browser is private. So if somebody comes along to your website and your website uses SSL, then any communication from that person's web browser to your server and from your server to their web browser is all encrypted, it's all private. You may also hear about TLS, and this is very, very similar. It stands for Transport Layer Security. It's newer and it's a stronger protocol, but you'll often hear people referring to it as SSL. It's not exactly the same as SSL, but it does do the same thing. Showing this as a diagram, you can see on the left we've got a computer that is connecting to two different websites. One of them uses a secure SSL connection, the other one does not. The HTTP is the old insecure protocol, and data that is sent from the user's computer to the server and from the server back to the computer is sent as text. Anyone that can intercept that stream of information can read the text. So if you're sending things like bank details or credit card details, it is essential that you have HTTPS. With an HTTPS secure connection, when a browser tries to connect to the server, it requests the server's identity. And the server has to identify itself by sending the SSL certificate, including the server's public key. And these can be checked. So if things don't quite match, if the certificate doesn't match what's supposed to be there, or something's a little bit dodgy, your web browser will say, hey, this certificate isn't valid for whatever reason. And you know that there is a problem with that site and you shouldn't probably put your credit card details into it. So to summarize then, SSL is important to keep information confidential and private. There is communication two ways between a web browser and a server that holds the website. The communication between them needs to be kept private. You don't want credit card details, usernames and passwords being visible because they're being transmitted as text files. You need to have them encrypted. The encrypted sites, those that use the HTTPS and have the certificate installed, will have a secure sign in the address bar of Google Chrome, and other web browsers as well are including some sort of indicator there that the website is secure or it's not secure. It's quite possible that you may have the HTTPS loading on your site, but you don't get the green padlock. That will be because you have some insecure content somewhere on your page, and that stops it from being 100% secure. Let's Encrypt is a free certificate authority. That means it can issue SSL certificates and they don't cost you anything. The good thing about Let's Encrypt is that a lot of web hosts are compatible with it. The web host that I recommend in my courses is StableHost, and they are compatible with it. If you want to check, go to your web host and ask them, or log into your cPanel and scroll down to the security section down here, and if you've got a Let's Encrypt SSL link, then you will be able to use Let's Encrypt on your sites on that web host. Now there's a couple of different scenarios here. Firstly, you may have an HTTP site that you want to convert to HTTPS, or you might be installing a new site and you want to install the SSL certificate from scratch at the time you install WordPress. We're going to look at both in this video. So the first option here is let's install a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate on an existing website. Here I've got a demo site that is not secure. This is hosted on StableHost. Now look what happens if I go to HTTPS and press return. It actually loads as a secure site. Now I haven't installed an SSL certificate on this website, but my host, StableHost, has. My host uses something called Auto SSL, and your web host may do the same thing. So the first thing to do is to check. If you put https:// and then your domain, does it load up as a secure website? If it does, then you've already got the certificate there. The only thing you need to do is to make sure that if somebody tries to go to the insecure site, it's automatically redirected to the secure site. And we can do that by editing the htaccess file for this website. So I'm going to load that up in FileZilla. And here I have the htaccess file open, ready for editing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert 2 lines of code. Now the 2 lines of code that I'm going to insert I've included as a resource for this lecture, so you can download it and you'll have those 2 lines of code. What you want to do is move your mouse to the end of this line, rewrite engine on, and just add a couple of spaces in there. And we're going to paste the 2 lines of code in between. So I'm going to just paste those and then I'm going to save. Those changes will now be saved to my server, and if I go back to my website and refresh the insecure site, you can see now it's automatically redirecting to the secure site. So that's fixed the problem. If anybody tries to go to any of the pages, you can see down the bottom left now all of the URLs are HTTPS. Okay, so people are now going to be using the HTTPS version, and there is no way for them to get back to the HTTP because the redirect we've just put into the htaccess file. One thing you should do though is go and log into your dashboard and make sure you can get into your dashboard okay. Click on over to the settings general screen and scroll down a bit, and you should find that the WordPress address and the site address are now both HTTPS as well. So that's what happens if your server is using Auto SSL. What if it's not using Auto SSL? Let's look at that case now. Here I am back at the test site, and I've actually deleted the certificate on my server so that the HTTPS version no longer works. And we're going to assume that this is the case for you. You've got the HTTP version, you don't have the HTTPS version, but you still have the ability to install Let's Encrypt through your web host. So in this situation, you log into your cPanel and go down to security, and then click the link Let's Encrypt. This takes you to the Let's Encrypt SSL, and it will show you any domains where there are Let's Encrypt certificates installed. The site that we're interested in, this Harlan Limited, it says not installed. Now it has been installed, but I've deleted it so I can show you how to create these manually. It does say reinstall there, but I'm going to ignore that. What I want you to do if you want to install a Let's Encrypt certificate is scroll down the web page to the second section of this page that starts off with the title Issue a New Certificate, and in there you'll see a list of all your domains. What you need to do is next to the domain where you want to issue the certificate, which is this one down here, go along and click on Issue. When you click Issue, it will come up with some options that if you don't know what you're doing, just leave them as they are and click on Issue. You'll get the message hopefully that the SSL certificate is now installed onto the domain. Apache is restarting in the background. At this point we have an SSL certificate on our website. If we go back to the website, I'm going to refresh the HTTP version, and now I'm going to go and try the HTTPS version because we now have a certificate installed. And as you can see now, we are getting the padlock and we have HTTPS, so that certificate has been installed. However, if I go back to the HTTP version, we are allowed to get there. So the final part of this step is to go and insert those 2 lines of code back into your htaccess file, and then that would complete the setup for this type of SSL certificate installation. So let's have a look at option 2. This is where you install the Let's Encrypt certificate when you install WordPress. Here I am over in cPanel, and I want to go down to find Softaculous because I'm going to do the easy install. Click on the WordPress link, and then I'm going to click Install Now. What I need to do is to choose my domain name, and I've done that. I'm going to install it onto the same test site which I've previously uninstalled now, and then the setup here, if you try and carry on as normal, it says a trusted SSL certificate was not found. So what we need to do is go back to cPanel, and we want to go down to Let's Encrypt, scroll down to where it says Issue a New Certificate and click on the Issue, and then Issue the certificate. Okay, so the certificate has now been issued. I can go back to cPanel and back down to Softaculous. Where are we? All right, down the bottom, okay. And click on Install, select the domain again, and this time when we go to try and continue the installation, the HTTPS there is accepted. So I would then just go and change the settings as necessary, enter my details down here, and then click on the install button. The installation will then proceed as normal. This time it says WordPress successfully installed at, and it's got the HTTPS version. So if we click on that to open it in a new browser, you can see that we have the HTTPS version. If we try to go to the HTTP version, we still get it in this case. So do check to make sure whether the HTTP is still being served. If it is, then go into your htaccess file and add those 2 lines of code so that they will automatically be redirected to the HTTPS version.